Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unraveling the journey of a physical force that went from an ancient mystery to the invisible backbone of our modern world. It's a force you interact with every single day, probably multiple times a day. Yet, it's so seamlessly woven into our lives that we barely ever stop to appreciate it. Let's actually kick things off with a quick thought experiment, just to see how dependent we truly are on this invisible power. Imagine if, right at this very second, you could just snap your fingers and instantly eliminate every single magnetic force on Earth. What exactly would happen? Well, short answer, absolute immediate chaos. Without magnetism, literally everything shuts down. You'd wake up to your refrigerator door just swinging wide open because the magnetic seal is gone. Massive cargo ships carrying global supplies, they'd be completely lost in the pitch black of the endless oceans without their navigation systems. Modern high-speed trains would violently drop to the tracks and halt. Even that smartphone in your pocket instantly becomes a totally useless brick. We are entirely bound to this invisible force.
So, let's dive into Section 1, the ancient magic stones.
Because, it wasn't always this invisible technology running the world. The timeline here maps out the epic journey of the magnet across 4 distinct eras. We begin 2,500 years ago when it was just a mysterious rock. Then jump to the 12th century when we weaponized it for navigation. Next is the massive 19th century leap where it merged with electricity. And finally, today, where it's powering the digital age. Let's start at the very beginning. Let's rewind about 2.5 millennia to a region called Magnesia, Greece. Shepherds there basically stumbled onto these heavy, black rocks, which they started calling Lodestones, and these rocks miraculously pulled iron right toward them. In fact, they were named after Magnus, the shepherd who first found them. But keep in mind, nobody had a clue about the physics behind this back then. There were no textbooks. To them, this was straight-up, unadulterated magic.
And you can see how different early civilizations tried to make sense of that magic. Over in ancient Greece, they genuinely believed these stones possessed living souls, or were granted divine power by the gods. Meanwhile, ancient China took a slightly different approach, using the stones for fortune-telling and balancing energy. Which totally makes sense, right? If your rock suddenly grabs a piece of metal on its own, you're going to think it's alive or supernatural. Across the globe, it was treated as a completely mystical artifact.
Moving right along to Section 2, the compass and discovering the world.
So, how exactly do we cross the threshold from fortune-telling magic to world-shaping utility? That monumental breakthrough hits in the 12th century. Sailors in both China and Europe realized that if you took a plain iron needle and rubbed it against a lodestone, something incredible happened. That needle would align itself to point in one specific direction, consistently, every single time. Suddenly, this neat magic trick is a highly reliable guide. And you really can't overstate this revolution. Before the compass, ships timidly hugged the shorelines. There was this intense, completely justified fear of venturing out into the deep, dark ocean. Lose sight of land, and you might never find it again. But after, navigators could finally find true north. They crossed open oceans, discovered new continents, and launched global trade networks. This one tiny magnetized needle completely freed humanity from the cage of the shorelines.
Which brings us to Section 3, Industrial Revolution and Electricity.
Now, for hundreds of years, the magnet was basically just a navigational aid. But heading into the 19th century, we get a massive paradigm shift. Brilliant scientists like Faraday and Clerk Maxwell completely cracked the code. They proved that magnetism and electricity aren't just casually related. They are fundamentally linked together as two sides of the exact same coin. This is the moment everything kicks into high gear.
This connection became the literal engine of modern civilization. Look at the steps here. First, they find out that running an electric current creates a magnetic field. Then, boom, they realize the reverse is true too. A moving magnetic field generates electricity. That brilliant interplay directly gives us the electric generator and the electric motor. Suddenly, we didn't have to rely on just steam or Russian water to get things done anymore.
So the magnet rapidly evolves from a sailor's tool into the beating heart of the electrical industry. It completely replaced our reliance on steam and water power. It powered the very first electric lamps that illuminated our pitch-black cities at night. It drove the heavy, clanking machinery of these booming, massive factories. The entire modern world was literally being built on top of invisible magnetic fields.
All right, on to Section 4, Magnets in the Digital Age.
And that brings us to today, where magnets are seamlessly woven into almost every aspect of our daily lives. Sure, we still use simple ones for refrigerator doors and toys, but look at the medical field.
We're using immense, hyper-powerful magnets in hospital MRI machines to safely look deep inside the human body. Think about technology. All your digital data, photos, documents, it's all stored using microscopic magnetic fields on computer hard drives. We even have massive maglev trains literally floating frictionlessly on rails.
But, there's always a catch. Our digital world relies heavily on specific, extremely rare minerals like neodymium to make these super strong magnets. And we are currently facing a very real impending scarcity of these vital raw materials. It's a massive challenge. Scientists are scrambling and pushing incredibly hard to engineer stronger, eco-friendly alternatives before we completely tap out the resources keeping our modern world running.
Finally, let's wrap things up with Section 5, the silent teacher of history. If we step back and look at the grand philosophical picture here, it's pretty profound. The magnet proves that true value isn't about appearance. It started as just an ugly, heavy black rock found in the dirt. True value is about its impact on human progress. It gave us the ability to discover the world, control energy, and completely transform human life. We took a magic stone, turned it into a compass, then an electric motor, and finally, the brain of a modern computer. It really is the silent teacher of history. It reminds us that history is often hiding right there in the smallest, most unassuming details of our everyday lives. So next time you casually open your fridge to grab a snack, take a split second to remember you're touching a piece of humanity's greatest adventure. And it kind of makes you wonder, what other invisible forces are shaping our reality right under our noses, just waiting to be discovered next?